Hello and welcome to English Parlor. Today, I have a story that is not just a story. It's a journey of betrayal, courage, and reclaiming what was rightfully mine. As you listen, you'll improve your English by hearing natural, clear sentences, learning new vocabulary, and understanding emotional expressions in context. This story will show you how powerful words can be and how courage can change a life. Let's begin. My name is Mia Rodriguez. I was a software engineer at Langston Tech, a mid-sized tech company in San Francisco. I loved my work more than anything. My days were full of coding, debugging, and building systems that, little did I know, would become the backbone of the company. I wasn't rich, but I was content. I had a small apartment filled with secondhand furniture, a cat named Pixel, and a quiet routine that made me happy. Then came the day that changed everything. It started like any other Monday. I opened my laptop, prepared my morning coffee, and checked emails. There was a message from HR that didn't have my manager's name. I felt a strange pit in my stomach. The email was short. Please meet with Andrew Langston immediately. Andrew, the CEO, the man who always called me full of potential, the man who seemed to believe in me more than anyone else, wanted to see me. When I walked into his office, his expression was unreadable. The room smelled faintly of leather and expensive cologne. He gestured for me to sit. I noticed the assistant had left a folder on the table. Andrew cleared his throat. Mia, I have some difficult news. We're restructuring. Your position is terminated, effective immediately. I felt like the floor had dropped from under me. What? I managed to whisper. My voice barely reached him. He avoided my gaze. I'm sorry, it's not personal, he said, but his tone was hollow. Practiced. I'd spent 4 years building Langston Tech's flagship software system, every line of code, every internal tool, every algorithm, and now it was all gone. The weeks that followed were worse than the firing. 2 weeks later, a courier delivered a thick envelope to my tiny apartment. My hands shook as I tore it open. It was a lawsuit. Andrew was accusing me of violating a non-compete agreement and stealing intellectual property. He claimed the code I had written, my code, belonged to him. My stomach churned. It was all a trap, a way to destroy me before I could ever work in tech again. For a while, it worked. My savings disappeared. Interviews dried up. I sold furniture. I worked temporary jobs that barely covered rent. I cried in the shower so my roommates wouldn't hear. But one night, in the quiet of my apartment, I opened the original files I had created at Langston Tech. I wasn't looking for evidence. I was just remembering my work. That's when I noticed it. A detail I had missed. An email from Andrew's predecessor about patent paperwork, time-stamped from my second year at the company. I opened the attachment, and there it was. Patent Application 7-423-8B. Inventor, Mia Rodriguez. My name. Not the company's, not Andrew's, mine. I spent days verifying this with the patent office and a junior IP attorney. Every call confirmed the same thing. I owned the system legally, irrefutably. Andrew had sued me for something that was never his. I prepared for the hearing meticulously. 3 folders in my bag, blue, red, and yellow, each tabbed, labeled, and organized. The courtroom was intimidating. Andrew sat confidently at the plaintiff's table, his polished suit and smirk radiating arrogance. He assumed I was unprepared, but I had the truth, and the truth was mine. The judge entered. All rise. I stood at the defendant's table, my laptop flickering, my folders in hand. Miss Rodriguez, are you represented by counsel? She asked. No, Your Honor, I replied. A murmur ran through the room. Andrew's smirk faltered slightly. The judge nodded for him to begin, and he launched into a rehearsed argument about contracts and stolen property. Emails were displayed, all taken out of context to make me look reckless. But I stayed calm. I knew what I had. When the judge finally turned to me, my hands no longer trembled. I opened the blue folder and handed copies to the clerk. This, I said, is the patent filing for the algorithm in question. The judge's eyebrows rose. It was filed under my name, not the company's, I continued. Andrew's smirk vanished. The courtroom was silent, except for the hum of the fluorescent lights. I could see the panic beginning to creep into his eyes, though he tried to hide it behind controlled breathing. He didn't know about the folders, the evidence I had, the verification from the patent office. And as I opened the red folder, the courtroom felt heavier, every second building anticipation. This folder held the proof that the company never completed the patent assignment. I handed the documents to the clerk. Andrew's attorney leaned in, eyes wide, realizing too late that the narrative he'd rehearsed for weeks was crumbling. And then the final piece, the yellow folder, sat untouched on the table. Inside were commit logs, every line of code I had written, every update tied to my employee ID. Andrew had sued me, claiming ownership of work that was legally mine. The judge flipped through the pages slowly, then looked at him. You filed a lawsuit claiming she stole technology she legally owns? She asked. Andrew opened his mouth, then closed it. For the first time, his confidence wavered. I stood there, not triumphant, not vengeful, just steady. The truth was about to unfold, and there was nothing he could do to stop it. The courtroom felt alive with tension, a moment frozen in time, as everyone waited for the next move. I took a deep breath, preparing to reveal everything, knowing that what came next could change not only the outcome of this case, but my life forever. And just as the silence reached its peak, the judge asked the question that made the room hold its collective breath. Ms. Rodriguez, do you intend to bring a counterclaim? I froze. The weight of the past 6 months pressed down on me. My eyes met Andrew's, and for a second, I saw the arrogance, the cruelty, the certainty of his control slip away. But I was not yet ready to speak. The story was far from over. The courtroom door seemed heavier than before as I prepared for the next chapter, and I realized one thing. This fight wasn't just about the code, the patent, or the lawsuit. It was about reclaiming my life, and nothing could stop me now. The courtroom was silent, except for the soft rustle of papers and the occasional cough. I took my seat again, my fingers brushing the edges of the folders, as if drawing strength from them. My heart still raced, but now it was sharper, focused. I knew what came next would define the rest of this fight. Andrew Langston wasn't the type to accept defeat quietly. Panic, I realized, could make a person more dangerous than arrogance ever could. I tried to breathe steadily, remembering my own words. If the plaintiff continues this lawsuit or files another baseless claim, I will pursue a counterclaim for damages. The sentence echoed in my head. I had to be ready for anything, and Andrew's next move could be brutal. His attorney had tried to salvage the narrative, but the cracks were visible. Sweat glistened on Andrew's forehead. His usually controlled demeanor was slipping, revealing fear. Minutes passed slowly. The judge studied the documents I'd presented, occasionally glancing at Andrew and his attorney. I noticed his hands trembling slightly as he adjusted his tie, a small but telling sign. He leaned in to whisper to his attorney, and I could see the frustration building in their expressions. They had expected an easy case, an unrepresented former employee, a trembling voice, and maybe some emotional appeals, but not this. Then, Andrew rose abruptly. "Your Honor," he said, voice strained, "I request permission to submit additional evidence." The judge's sharp eyes bored into him. "Denied. This is the public record. What is relevant has already been submitted. Proceed." He sank back into his seat, muttering under his breath. The tension in the room was thick, almost tangible. I felt the weight of every gaze on me. The gallery, the judge, even Andrew, who looked like he was trying to make me falter through sheer presence. But I didn't. I opened the blue folder again, the first of the three, and began explaining. "Your Honor, these documents show the original patent filing, clearly listing me as the inventor. The assignment to Langston Tech was never completed." I could see Andrew's face tighten. His attorney was scribbling furiously on a notepad, clearly trying to find a loophole, but the law was clear. Every document I handed over reinforced my position. Emails, commit logs, and patent filings, all tied directly to me, all irrefutable. For the first time in months, I felt control returning. Andrew finally spoke, his voice cracking. "Your Honor, this is not the full story. Ms. Rodriguez was a junior developer. She could not possibly have sole ownership." He faltered, the words hanging in the air. I held his gaze calmly, letting the truth speak louder than any argument he could make. I moved to the red folder, revealing the commit logs. Every line of code I had written, every algorithm version, every timestamp. It was all there, documented and undeniable. The judge's eyes scanned the pages carefully. She looked up at Andrew. "You filed a lawsuit claiming she stole technology she legally owns?" Her voice was calm but firm. Andrew opened his mouth, then closed it. Silence. The murmurs in the courtroom grew. Andrew's attorney tried again. "Your Honor, we were under the impression—" "Impression is not evidence," the judge interrupted. The room went still. I opened the yellow folder, my final exhibit, and placed it before the clerk. "This shows every project update, every progress note, every timestamp tied to my employee ID. All of it is my work, and all of it is legally mine." Andrew's smirk was gone. His confidence evaporated in real time. The judge's eyes flicked back and forth between the folders and the two of us. "Ms. Rodriguez, do you intend to bring a counterclaim?" she asked. My throat tightened. Not yet. Not here. Not now. But the thought of finally leveling the field was intoxicating. Andrew shifted in his seat, his face pale. "Your Honor, we request a recess," he said, voice uneven. Panic, pure and raw, underlined every word. The judge sighed and tapped her gavel. 15 minutes. Court will reconvene promptly." He left quickly, his attorney following, whispering urgently. I stayed, hands gripping the edge of the table, heart hammering. Outside, the hallway smelled faintly of old coffee and industrial cleaner. For months, I had imagined this moment, the confrontation, the truth laid bare, the power of documentation. But imagining it was nothing like witnessing it. I opened my laptop, scrolling through the backup files I had saved. That's when I saw the folder I hadn't noticed before. SLCEO-private. The timestamp was from my last week at the company. I hadn't created it. Inside were documents with names I didn't recognize: Emergency Capital Strategy, Projected Investor Deck Q2, Revision, Acquisition Conditions Confidential. My stomach tightened. Reading through them, the pieces fell together. Langston Tech wasn't expanding. It was failing. 6 failed investment rounds, 2 major clients threatening to leave, internal audits exposing mismanagement, and then an internal investor assurance plan. It explicitly stated that securing full ownership of the patent was critical to keeping investors. Everything clicked. Andrew hadn't fired me to protect the company's intellectual property. He had fired me to protect his own survival. He had sued me to cover the cracks, to control a patent that could have saved his sinking ship. Fear, greed, desperation. It was all there, documented in his own files. The recess ended. I closed my laptop, packed up my folders, and walked back into the courtroom. Andrew was seated, no smirk, no confident gestures, just the weight of panic pressing down. His attorney looked strained, flipping through papers in vain. The judge returned, and the gallery quieted instantly. The courtroom was back in session. Andrew's attorney tried to regain control, speaking quickly about procedural matters and additional documentation. "Your Honor, we would like more time." The judge cut him off. "You filed a serious claim without proper verification. Proceed with your defense, or we move to dismissal." He nodded tightly, the first real sign that he understood the ground was shifting beneath him. I stood, feeling calm for the first time. This was my moment. I opened the blue folder, ready to present the internal investor deck. Murmurs filled the room as I displayed the slides. "These documents," I said, "show the company claimed ownership of my patent to investors, but ownership was never transferred. I did not alter these records. I present them as they were stored." Andrew's attorney jumped up. "Your Honor, this is confidential corporate information." The judge ignored him. I continued, steady and deliberate. Slide after slide shows projections tied directly to technology Andrew did not legally control. The internal audit highlights financial mismanagement, showing motive for filing this lawsuit. The room grew tense. Andrew leaned forward, jaw tight. His attorney looked helpless. The judge's expression was unreadable, but I sensed the shift. The air felt heavy, thick with anticipation. Everyone in that room understood. Something fundamental had changed. And then the judge's words cut through the silence. "Ms. Rodriguez, are you saying the plaintiff filed this lawsuit as a means of financial self-preservation?" I nodded, my voice clear. "Yes, Your Honor, that is exactly what I believe." Andrew's face twitched, disbelief and fear mixing in his eyes. His voice cracked. That's not what happened." But the judge raised her hand, stopping him mid-sentence. She looked at me, calm but firm. "You will have the opportunity to respond if you wish, but the evidence you have presented cannot be ignored." I felt the weight of the moment, the magnitude of every step I had taken to reach this point. Andrew had underestimated me. He had assumed fear and inexperience would defeat me. But months of preparation, sleepless nights, and unwavering focus had brought me here. The tide had turned. And then he stood, eyes red, tie crooked, his image shattered. "Mia!" he said, voice small, almost unrecognizable. My heart skipped, not in fear, but in anticipation. The judge called the court back to attention, and I clutched my folders tightly. The next few moments would determine everything. And that's when I realized owning the patent wasn't the end. It was only the beginning. The courtroom hummed with tension as the judge leaned back in her chair, surveying the two of us. Andrew's shoulders were rigid, his eyes darting from me to the judge and back again. I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the evidence I had just presented pressing in, yet strangely empowering. This wasn't just a case, it was a revelation, and the truth was finally in my hands. The judge cleared her throat. "Mr. Langston, you may respond." Andrew's voice wavered. "Your Honor, yes, I filed the lawsuit because—" He faltered, swallowed hard, and tried again. "I believed there was confusion over ownership. It was never my intent to misrepresent anything." His eyes flicked toward me, pleading for understanding, for some leverage. But I remained silent, letting the evidence speak. The murmurs in the courtroom grew louder. People were sensing the unraveling, the collapse of a narrative that had once seemed airtight. I watched Andrew struggle, realizing that confidence alone could no longer save him. The slides I had presented, the internal audit, the investor reports, the unreleased files, had shifted the balance entirely. The judge held up a hand. "Mr. Langston, the documentation presented by Ms. Rodriguez is clear. Ownership of the patent was never legally transferred, and your actions to claim it could be considered both improper and potentially fraudulent." Her voice was firm, precise, without any trace of emotion. Andrew paled. He opened his mouth, then closed it again. Silence hung heavily in the room. I moved to the yellow folder, the one containing emails and commit logs, and gestured toward the judge. "Your Honor, these logs prove beyond any doubt that the work was created, maintained, and updated exclusively by me. Every timestamp, every contribution is documented and verifiable." I could see the judge's eyes scanning the pages, nodding slightly as the pieces came together. Andrew's attorney tried to intervene. "Your Honor, these are company records." "Company records do not override legal ownership of intellectual property," the judge interrupted sharply. "Proceed with factual evidence only." His face tightened, and he slumped back into his chair, defeated. I felt a small, almost imperceptible rush of triumph. Months of research, preparation, and careful documentation had brought me to this moment, but there was no time to celebrate. Andrew wasn't finished, and desperation made people dangerous. Then, unexpectedly, he blurted out, voice cracking, "Mia, you don't understand. If I lose this patent, the company collapses. Investors will pull out, jobs will be lost. Everything I've built will vanish." The words hung in the air. For a moment, I saw vulnerability behind the arrogance, the fear behind the anger. But I also recognized manipulation. This was the exact strategy I had anticipated: to guilt me, to pressure me into conceding. I swallowed hard and spoke calmly. "Andrew, the company's fate cannot justify filing a fraudulent claim, and my work is not negotiable. Ownership is clear, and the law is clear." He staggered in his seat, as if my words had physically struck him. His attorney looked helpless, whispering frantically, trying to salvage what little credibility remained. The judge glanced at him, eyes sharp. "Mr. Langston, it appears your claims lack merit. The evidence presented by Ms. Rodriguez is extensive and verifiable. I am considering dismissal of your lawsuit with prejudice, as well as allowing a counterclaim for damages if filed." Andrew's head dropped into his hands. The gallery murmured, whispers of shock and disbelief spreading like wildfire. He had overplayed his hand. underestimated the diligence of someone he assumed was inexperienced and fearful. But this wasn't just about winning or losing. It was about exposing the truth, and the truth was now undeniable. I felt a strange calm as I realized the next steps were mine to control. Months of preparation, sleepless nights, and tireless research had brought me to this exact point. I could choose to strike hard with a counterclaim, or I could settle strategically to protect my intellectual property without destroying the company entirely. This was power. True, deliberate power. The judge paused, considering the documents and testimony before her. "Mr. Langston, do you wish to respond further?" He shook his head, silent. "Very well. This court will reconvene tomorrow to hear Ms. Rodriguez's counterclaim and any motions regarding damages." As the gavel fell, signaling the end of the session, I packed my folder slowly, savoring the moment. Outside the courtroom, Andrew and his attorney whispered furiously, but I ignored them. My focus was on the path ahead, on securing what was rightfully mine and ensuring justice was served. Walking down the courthouse steps, the sunlight warm on my face, I felt a mix of relief and anticipation. This wasn't just about a patent or a lawsuit. It was about proving that diligence, integrity, and preparation could overcome fear, manipulation, and power. And I knew, deep down, that the next day would be even more decisive. I paused at the street corner, watching people bustle by, unaware of the drama that had unfolded just hours earlier. My phone buzzed with messages from colleagues and friends, all offering congratulations, all sensing the turning tide. I smiled faintly, fingers brushing the edge of my blue folder, and whispered to myself, "It's not over yet. But I'm ready." Tomorrow, I realized, would decide everything. The next morning, the courtroom was packed. Reporters jostled for position, cameras clicked incessantly, and whispers of speculation filled the air. I walked in, calm and composed, carrying the folder that had become my armor over the past months. Every step felt deliberate, every breath measured. Today, it wasn't just about proving ownership, it was about reclaiming control. Andrew sat across from me, his confidence gone, replaced by a simmering tension. His attorney shot me a glance that was equal parts warning and plea, but I ignored it. I had no fear. Preparation was on my side, and preparation was unshakable. The judge entered, and the room fell silent. "We are here to hear the counterclaim by Ms. Rodriguez, as well as motions regarding damages." Her voice was calm, but the authority behind it was undeniable. I nodded, letting her words settle. I began presenting the counterclaim, carefully outlining the timeline of events, the creation and maintenance of the patent, and the evidence of Andrew's attempts to falsely claim ownership. Slide by slide, email by email, commit by commit, the truth unfolded before the court. Andrew's lawyer tried to interject. "Your Honor, while the evidence is compelling..." The judge cut him off sharply. "This court will not be interrupted. Ms. Rodriguez, continue." I could feel the tension in the room shift. The gallery leaned forward, captivated by the story of deceit, diligence, and justice. Every documented timestamp, every email chain, every corroborating witness testimony made the case airtight. Andrew's eyes darted nervously, and his fingers fidgeted. For the first time, the facade of control cracked. Then, I laid out the final piece, a private recording of Andrew admitting to deliberately misrepresenting the ownership to investors. The judge listened intently as Andrew's words played over the courtroom speakers. the confession undeniable. Gasps echoed through the room, and I felt a quiet satisfaction. The truth could no longer be denied. The judge leaned back, reviewing the evidence. It is clear that Ms. Rodriguez is the sole and rightful owner of the patent in question. Mr. Langston's claims are without merit and appear to have been filed in bad faith. I hereby dismiss the lawsuit with prejudice and award Ms. Rodriguez the full counterclaim for damages and legal fees. Andrew's face drained of color. He opened his mouth, then closed it again, defeated and silent. The courtroom murmured in astonishment and relief. Justice had been served, and it was irreversible. Outside the courtroom, the sunlight felt warmer than ever. Colleagues and supporters rushed to congratulate me. Cameras flashed, but I barely noticed. For the first time in months, the weight of uncertainty lifted. I had fought not just for a patent, but for integrity, fairness, and my own peace of mind. As I walked down the courthouse steps, I felt a mix of triumph and reflection. This journey had tested me, pushed me to my limits, and revealed both the fragility and the resilience of human ambition. Andrew's downfall was a cautionary tale, a reminder that shortcuts and deception could never withstand truth. Later that evening, I returned home, exhausted but fulfilled. I placed the blue folder on my desk, now a symbol not just of legal victory, but of perseverance, clarity, and the power of meticulous preparation. The city lights twinkled outside, a quiet celebration of the day's resolution. I took a deep breath, thinking of the road ahead. The patent, now securely in my hands, would allow me to innovate freely, responsibly, and confidently. The future was mine to shape, built on the foundation of truth and effort. And as I looked at the folder one last time, I whispered softly to myself, "This is only the beginning." The story was over, but life, with all its challenges and opportunities, continued. I had learned that strength wasn't in aggression or arrogance. It was in diligence, patience, and unshakable resolve. Justice had been served, integrity had triumphed, and I was ready for whatever came next. Now it's time to learn some important words from today's story. Don't worry, they might seem tricky, but I'll explain them in simple English so you can use them easily in real life. Betray means to hurt someone who trusts you. Example: he betrayed his best friend by lying to him. Lie means to say something that is not true. Example: she lied about being at home. Trust means believing someone is honest or will not hurt you. Example: I trust my friends with my secrets. Confess means to tell the truth about something bad you did. Example: he confessed that he made a mistake. Regret means feeling sad about something you did. Example: I regret not helping her sooner. Secret means something you keep hidden from others. Example: he had a secret that shocked everyone. Forgive means to stop being angry at someone who hurt you. Example: she forgave him after he apologized. Courage means being brave even when it is hard. Example: it took courage to face the truth. Deceive means to trick someone or make them believe something false. Example: he tried to deceive everyone with a fake story. Protect means to keep someone safe from harm. Example: I will protect my friends no matter what. A helpful tip is to make your own sentences with these words. This will help you remember them faster and speak English naturally. Now let's do some shadowing practice. Repeat after me slowly at first, then try to speak faster. Feel the emotion in each sentence. I trusted him, but he lied. Why did you keep this secret from me? I had to make a choice. It hurt, but I forgive you. The truth is finally out. I will never give up on myself. This is my chance to be brave. I can face anything now. Sometimes secrets can destroy trust. But love and courage will always remain. Here are some tips for shadowing. Speak loud and clear, just like you are telling a story. Match the emotion in each sentence. Record yourself to check your pronunciation and improve every time. Thank you for listening to the story today. Before we say goodbye, think about this. Which new word did you like the most? Have you ever had to forgive someone? Which part of the story made you feel emotional? Write your thoughts in the comments below. I love reading your stories and learning with you. See you next time. Remember, every story is a chance to learn English and feel life. Bye for now.